Hello, in this video I'm going to run through the kit I used for the Silk Road Mountain Race. If you haven't seen it already, then check out the bike check video, but in this one I'm going to focus on what's inside the bags, the layers I used, what worked, what didn't, and what I'd change if I did it again. So I'm going to start with a frame bag, and in here is things I'd need daily, but not too often. Quite a lot of it was taken up by food, so right now it's fairly empty, but I started and it was really rammed. I took as much high calorie food as I could, knowing that the Silk Road Mountain Race is quite remote and resupply isn't always the best. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure I had the calories I needed to keep going throughout. So let's have a little look and see what I've got in here. It's a bit of a mess because this is pretty much how I left the bike when I finished. Yeah, I'll show you what I've got. So there's a few dry bags in here. So this one is just various cables. The ones I used the most were the ones to charge the Wahoo, and I think I charged my phone once. Generally, I leave my phone off in these things because it's just a waste of battery and a distraction. So yeah, all the cables I could possibly need and a few spares in that little pouch. And then in here, I had some spare kind of electronics. I had a wall socket, just in case I needed to charge anything up, although I was pretty much reliant on the dynamo. I wanted to be self-sufficient for this. A couple of other little cables and spare GoPro battery. There's video coming at some point. Some earphones, and then I had a spare Wahoo just for navigation purposes in case anything went wrong. What else did I have in here? So I had my warm gloves. Now these, I really rate these. They're Aeron lab gloves from DHB. I used to be sponsored by them, and you know, there's certain elements of their kit which I really like and still use today. It's got alpha insulation in there, so they're really warm and quite lightweight, you know, for their warmth. As you can see, very well used. The temperatures were like -6 at times. They were fine, kind of below freezing. If it's slightly wet, I put an overglove on, but generally they worked very well. Another DHB item are the Aeron mitts. I find these super comfortable. They've got like a bit of a chamois on the palm, and they worked really well for me. Other items in here, I've got this rather snazzy looking custom cap, actually my mum created for me. So basically it's a hunt cap with a bit of base layer on the back, and I use this when it's really hot just to keep the sun off my head, not too much sort of heat trapped in there, kept the sweat out of my eyes, and the base layer I could soak in water and it evaporates off the back of your neck and just keeps you cool as well as keeping the sun off your neck. So yeah, I've used it in Morocco for the Silk Road Mountain Race, for the Alps Mountain Race and the Silk Road Mountain Race. So yeah, it's a good piece of kit. I've also got some waterproof socks. These proved invaluable. They're very warm, and also there's quite a few river crossings at times, and just keeping your feet dry was really good, especially at night because it was, you know, below freezing, so you don't want wet, cold feet in those kind of conditions. Other things I had in here, I've got a titanium spork. My plan was to eat a few freeze-dried meals. That didn't really materialise, but what I did use this for was cutting cheese to make sandwiches, so very useful to have that extra long handle. I also had tissues, mainly for toilet needs, because yeah, there was a lot going to the toilet outside. And then these were, that bag was full of food when I started. Obviously worked my way through that. There's a packet from a block of cheese, silver blanket, part of the essential kit list, so I just left that in there just in case. And then a few dressings and bandages, again very remote. If something happens on the Silk Road Mountain Race medically, you're not going to get looked after very quickly, so you need to be able to look after yourself. And yeah, I took a few dressings and stuff just to ensure that you know, if the worst case happened, I'd be okay. On the other side of the bag there is another pocket. I had a few bits in here, so I had a power bank just as a backup in case the dynamo failed or I needed to top up anything, and I had my passport and wallet, that kind of thing. There's a load of zip ties, and then also a medical kit. I say medical kit, mainly it's diarrhea related. I got recommended to take some of this on the start line, picked it up in a pharmacy in Kyrgyzstan. Basically, if there has been numerous cases on the Silk Road Mountain Race of vomiting and diarrhea at the same time, that's the kind of thing you put in your drink to make it stop. I also have some antibiotics. I just picked them up as a 3-day course of antibiotics in case something like that really did happen. And then I've got some plasters, antiseptic wipes. I did actually have to use one wipe when I cut my toe crossing a river. I've got some Imodium, again, just to block yourself up if you do get ill. And then I have these iodine swabs just to clean out any cuts or anything. Luckily, I didn't have to use too much out of that first aid kit. Just a plaster when I cut my toe. But yeah, it was all good. Now onto the lower pocket on the frame bag. Now this is where I kept tools and my pump and things that I hopefully wasn't going to use in the race. So I've got this Crank Brothers pump. It's got like a high volume and a low volume mode to it. Nice and compact, works pretty well. Pumps a tyre up fairly fast, although it is a mini pump, so you know, it is what you'd expect. I've got some insulation tape around there and some duct tape. I've also got my tool pouch. So in here, I've got like a penknife, chain breaker, mini pliers, all the spares like hangers, patches, spare bolts, chain links, all that kind of thing. Again, I didn't have to take that out there, which is the best scenario. I've also got a couple of straps. There's a voile strap and one of the tail fin straps. You never know when you need to fix something, so very useful to have those in there. And then I've got a couple of inner tubes, 2 inner tubes, which are tucked in the back here. Again, I wrap them in plastic bags so they don't rub and make holes in them. And yeah, didn't have to use them, which is the best case scenario for me. I've also got a little chain rag in there, and I've got one of those restrap tyre boot kits, which is also very handy to have just in case. Onto the top tube bag. In here I kept things which I need fairly close to hand and on a regular basis throughout the day. So I've got my camera in there. It's a nice Olympus film camera. I find I don't take many shots with my phone, so having a dedicated camera makes me take some photos. So I'm looking forward to seeing those when they're developed. I've also got my exposure joystick helmet light. Use this at night. Obviously I'm running a dynamo light. If you had any problems with the dynamo, you need a backup. And also when you're going really slow or hiker biking, dynamo's not very effective. So that was really good for those scenarios. And then I just had, you know, odds and sods. So I had my chain lube using squirt lube, worked really well, keeps the chain relatively clean, doesn't get too much dirt stuck to it. This fabric multi-tool, really excellent. Very good for getting into awkward bolt spacings. Sunscreen, lip balm, pseudo-creme, which I didn't use, dermal, it's like a antiseptic kind of cream. Again, didn't use any of that, which is really good, but you kind of need it with you. Hand sanitizer, most certainly use that quite a lot on the race. And then I've got my Dynaplug. I've got Dynaplug, spare darts for the Dynaplug, vulcanizing rubber glue to secure Dynaplugs if you do have to use them, and a tyre lever. Now I am a really big fan of this top tube pack, really easy to use, just clips on there, super secure, never came undone, and when it opens you can get loads of space in there just to, you know, put stuff in easily without having to faff around with a zip. Now onto the front bag, and I'll start with the mesh on the front here. Now I love the mesh on these things, really useful, and I just had things like food and things I needed close to hand. So there's a couple of compartments. I had things like my toothbrush, chlorine tablets. I use them all the time, so just having them there was really useful. I also had like a bit of a lip balm because it was so hot and dry, your lips just got absolutely destroyed. And then I had things like food. I've got a couple of these holy fat nut butters left over in there, and a couple of high carb bars, so they were always there just to hand, and I just kind of gradually worked my way through the food, and then I'd put all the rubbish in the other side. Don't want to be littering, and everything stayed put nicely. So yeah, super useful having that mesh on the front of the bike. Right, now onto the front bag, and this is where I kept pretty much all my clothing and layers. So I'll pull them out and I'll tell you how I used each layer, and yeah, you can see the kind of the process I use. So I started wearing, obviously I'm sponsored by Albion, so this is going to be an Albion heavy kit list. So yeah, don't be surprised. I've had a few comments before about how much Albion's in stuff, but that's what I use. So I'd start with the cargo shorts and a jersey and some socks. That was my base kind of layer as such, and then I build up or down from there depending on the temperatures. So in here, this is my ultralight insulated jacket from Albion. It's actually been modified slightly to have this high collar on it. I get a really cold neck, so the guys actually extended the collar just to keep a bit more warmth in there. But I was using this pretty much when it got too cold, just have a jersey on, I'd chuck that over the top, and it worked really well. And it worked really well under a rain jacket, just to keep the warmth in. So yeah, valuable piece of equipment. I also had a merino neck warmer, wore that quite a lot of nights and early mornings. And leg warmers. Now these are DHB Lab ones. I don't think they make them anymore, but they just work really well for me. They fit my legs and they're quite warm. So yeah, really good. I then got some arm warmers. So I quite often chuck arm warmers on. You know, I ended up not wearing a base layer quite often. I do have a base layer with me in here somewhere. Where is it? Which is here. It's an Albion Merino base layer. But because it was really warm during the day, I ended up not wearing it. And then as it got cold quite quickly, I ended up putting layers over the top rather than putting this underneath. So that only got worn a couple of times. And then I found when I did wear it, because I wasn't used to it, I just felt really, really hot all the time. Quite often I'd just wear my lightweight insulated gilet over my jersey. So I'd wear that, then I put the insulated jacket on, and then build up from there gradually. Other things I had in here, I've got this POC balaclava. This was really, really useful. It was super cold at night and it just kept your neck warm, your head, everything. And you could pull it up over your mouth, over your nose. It was below freezing most mornings. Up high, we're talking like 3,000 meters. So, you know, you just need to keep everything warm. And yeah, highly recommend a balaclava to fit underneath the helmet. Other things I took these arm screens. I thought it'd be quite intense sunlight and I thought I'd just protect my arms a bit. To be honest, these are just Skinz ones. I wore them once. I probably wouldn't bother with them again, to be honest. I kind of wore these in conjunction with the hat and the neck scarf, the neck protector, which I showed you previously. I'd definitely take the neck protector and hat, but yeah, these weren't really that necessary. As it was, they don't take up much room, so it wasn't really a major issue, but yeah, I wouldn't bother packing those again. I did have a spare pair of shorts. These haven't been washed yet, a bit minging, so I had two sets of shorts with me. Basically, I did the first 4 days and then swapped them and put these on. I don't think I rinsed them in between. These are the Albion cargo bib shorts. They were absolutely spot on, no saddle sores, nothing. They work really well for me. Obviously shorts are a personal thing, but yeah, I have absolutely no problems with those. They do need a wash though, they are pretty smelly, having stewed in this bag for the best part of a week now. I also carried a small dry bag with me, so I wanted to make sure I had a complete spare change of clothes. I had my spare shorts in there originally just to make sure they're dry, and I also took a long sleeve merino base layer from Albion with me, but I never actually used this. My plan was that maybe I'd sleep in it, and I had a spare pair of boxer shorts in here as well. I just wanted to have something I could get totally dry if there was a massive storm. But as it was, because it was so cold at night, I just didn't want to get undressed to put that on, so I just slept in my kit all the time. Also, my bivvy was a little bit tight to get changed in, so I ended up just wearing my kit, so I didn't take my kit off, apart from changing my shorts for the entire race. I also had some really warm merino winter socks. Again, I probably wouldn't take those again because the waterproof socks work really well, keeping my feet both warm and dry. But I wasn't sure, how it was going to go, being my first time in Kyrgyzstan, so I was erring on the side of caution. So the final thing I have in the front bag, and I'd normally access this from the other side, was my rain gear. So there's a set of wipes in there as well that seem to have made their way in. Didn't use those either. So I had these Albion ZOA Rain trousers. As it was, it didn't rain too much, but there was some really cold mornings, so they worked really well keeping the wind off, keeping the extra insulation, especially over the leg warmers. I really rate them. They work well for me. So yeah, they got used a hell of a lot. And then my Albion ZOA Rain shell, that was in there. This was on and off quite a lot. Again, didn't rain too much, thankfully, but it was more used for, you know, keeping heat in, wind off, and yeah, got used a hell of a lot. One other thing I had in the pocket of my rain shell was some overgloves. So you've already seen like the warm gloves I had, but I had these overmitts. I think they're Outdoor Research or something. They're more hiking ones, but I found that I could just chuck them over the top. Now they did work to keep my hands warmer. However, the mitt is a bit of a problem. It works okay on mountain bike bars, but it does restrict your fingers a little bit. One thing I'd change going forward is I'd probably try and get a split finger design. There's a few bike brands which do them specifically for cycling rather than hiking. I would take some overgloves like this again. They weigh nothing. They do trap a lot of heat in because of the mitt format. But yeah, these particular ones would, you know, probably is okay in Silk Road, but if you're doing a more technical mountain biking kind of route, they would restrict your braking and your grip on the bars. But yeah, they worked for me for this event. Glad I took them. I did use them on a couple of occasions, so yeah, well worth it. Now the final bag I need to run through is my Tailfin Aero pack. This is a custom bag. It's an earlier prototype, so as you can see, it's made from Dynamo. There's some pockets on the side. These have been improved since, but they're kind of useful just to tuck things in there. So I had an extra 1 litre water carrier in there. Didn't actually use it, probably a bit of a waste of time carrying it. But yeah, it didn't weigh much. And then the other side, I had some wipes basically to clean myself, which I didn't actually use. As I said, I didn't have a shower. Actually, no, I had kind of had a shower at one of the checkpoints, but it was more just washing the top layer of dirt off. So yeah, I was very unclean for a week, but I was fine with that. So yeah, onto the rear pack. In the rear pack, this is my sleeping gear and my insulated jacket, and also just odds and sods that I packed in there, extra food at the start. If I ran out of room anywhere else, the tail pack, the aero pack really does expand to cater for those needs. So let me show you what I've got in here. And probably one of the most valuable pieces of equipment I took on the whole event was my Albion ZOA insulated jacket. Now this piece of kit, before the race, I was really wondering about weight and stuff. There's various jackets from Albion. This is the ZOA, which is fairly heavy for what it is. It's Pertex, you know, it's synthetic insulated. You can definitely get lighter jackets, but this is really good for riding in. I was thinking about taking the Albion ZOA lightweight insulated jacket, but in the end I didn't want to take any risks. Just being inexperienced in Kyrgyzstan in these conditions, no, it can be changeable. I basically took more stuff than I needed. I think that's probably reflective of my whole bike setup. I reckon I probably could have gone a couple of kilos lighter and been quite comfortable. But I wasn't willing to take any risks, and I'm so glad I took this jacket. So it's got a hood on there. I really wrapped up in it. I slept in it every single night. I slept in -6, and I actually managed to oversleep. Probably a reflection of both this jacket and my sleeping setup, which I'll touch on in a second. So yeah, really rate this jacket, really good. A little bit bulkier than other jackets out there, but I just did not regret taking it one bit. The other thing I took with me, which was absolutely the best thing I've taken, I picked up these down socks. I got them from AliExpress. They're about less than 15 quid, about 12 quid I think. And they just really made such a difference. I get cold feet sometimes in my sleeping bag. I took a slightly lighter sleeping bag. You know, some people are taking like -2 degrees sleeping bags. Mine was 4 degrees. I'll show you it in a second. But yeah, these just kept my feet so warm. I slept so comfortably. And for £10, they were an absolute bargain. Down socks, and I just kept them in the pocket of my jacket. So at night, when I stopped, I'd chuck my jacket on, put the down socks on, and then get into my sleeping bag and bivvy. And yeah, it was a really nice setup, and I had no problem sleeping in the cold. So the rest of the stuff in my aero pack was pretty much sleeping gear. So I've got my sleeping bag. This is a custom bag I've got made a couple of years ago. Extra long, it's from PhD Designs. It's the really fancy down, which is like super warm. It's down to 4 degrees, hence me sleeping in my jacket and my down socks. But I slept in -6, no problems whatsoever. There was probably 4 or 5 nights when I was above 3,000 meters, sleeping up high, super cold, below freezing. I slept super comfortably. I also took a couple of freeze-dried meals with me, expedition meals. My plan was maybe to just top them up with water at checkpoints. I carried those around with me the whole race. That's a kilo of weight that I carried for no reason. I probably wouldn't take it again, but I just was very unsure. And then my bivvy, I opted for a heavier bivvy. So this is a Rab bivvy. I've had it a very long time. It's a hooped bivvy. It's a Ridge Raider, and yeah, it's a bit heavier. It's about 1 kilogram, but I just wanted to be confident. I know it's weatherproof. I know it's warm, but it is a bit bulkier and a little bit heavier than other options out there. If I was going to go back again, I think I'd take a tent, but I'd take one of the Z-Packs tents. They're Dynamo tents, extremely expensive. But my friend Manu, who was also racing, has one. I played around with it before the race, and I think it's probably worth the investment if I was going to do this again. The benefit for me would be that it's probably lighter than this. This is the best part of 1 kilogram once you've got the pole involved. And yeah, the Z-Packs Dynamo one is about 600 grams, packs down smaller, and also there's more space to get changed inside. So I took my long sleeve layer, you know, which I was planning to sleep on, but because it was so cold, I never got undressed. It would have been nice to get out of my kit, and sleeping in a tent would have allowed me to do so. So I think I might invest in one of those tents for the future, unless they want to give me one. If you're watching, give me a shout. But yeah, I think these super lightweight Dynamo tents for this kind of event are probably worth it, especially if you get stuck in a storm or something. We didn't get stuck in a storm on this particular race, but you never know in the mountains. So yeah, I think next time I'd take that. I also have my trusty Neo Air sleeping pad, full length one. It's the one with the insulation baffles in there. Again, I wanted to make sure I was warm. I've had this for about 10 years. Still works. If you look after your kit, it'll last a very long time. So I've got no qualms buying expensive stuff if I know it's going to last. So yeah, so that was my sleeping kit. I'll show you it built up in a second, and yeah, thoroughly recommend it. The only other things I had in here, I had more toilet tissues, just because you can't be too careful in Kyrgyzstan. Oh, I found my race cap. Don't actually wear the race caps, but that's been round number 52. So that just got dumped in there at the start. And then I've got my Albion folding backpack. I didn't really use it much, mainly because I think I chucked it at the bottom on the first day and never really found it again. But really useful going into shops just to load stuff up. So yeah, always carry one of those with me. It's done a lot of races, had a lot of use, and still going strong. So that is all the gear that I used for the Silk Road mountain race. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give us a little subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. There's loads more coming. There's my bike check, which you've probably seen already. I've got my race video, and I'll do a little bit of race analysis and analysis on other people's bikes. So keep tuned, stay tuned, and yeah, catch you in the next one.